Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And amid many self-inflicted wounds, Governor Rauner is set to apparently deliver another one by signing Senate Bill 31, the Trust Act, a.k.a. sanctuary state legislation. That's how it's being characterized. That he's set to sign that on Monday, according to reports that were out yesterday in the Chicago Tribune and elsewhere. And this is wildly unpopular. And I'm not saying that you always do the things that are popular. That's not what a leader does. But
it's unpopular amongst Democrats and Republicans.
Well, it's wildly. But there are defenders of it. The governor will make the point, as others have made, that this was bipartisan. Now, that's a little of an overstatement, but there were 6 Republicans in the House and the Senate, 1 in the House and 5 in the Senate, who voted for this. Bob Pritchard in the House from DeKalb, he's retiring. Pam Altoff, on the Senate side, Pam Altoff from McHenry County, she's retiring. Christine Radogno on the Senate, she's already left. And then Dan McConkey, Karen McConaughey, and Chris Nybo, McConkey from Lake County, McConaughey from Kane, and Nybo from DuPage, Elmhurst Way. McConkey, who's a friend and an ally, the others I don't have any quibbles with it as a general matter. I disagree with them on this particular piece of legislation. But McConkey has said he would not have he would not have voted for the legislation that he initially supported in its final incarnation now, upon further reflection. But one proponent of the legislation is Lake County Sheriff Mark Curran, who's a Republican, and a God-fearing Catholic who takes his faith seriously. I'm trying to build him up because I feel he's going to be savaged, particularly by you, Amy, with your stentorian moralizing on this topic. You know how hard you are. The vitriol. So I just wanted you to holster it.
Yeah, my eyes are bleeding right now.
Yeah, okay. Here's what the legislation does before we get to Mark.
Thank you. So I can get my anger on. Okay?
Exactly, yeah.
Come on, bring it, Dan.
Crank it up. The law would ban local jails from holding illegal aliens without criminal warrants at the behest of federal authorities, prevent federal agents from arresting persons here illegally at schools and state-run hospitals, ban local government agencies from participating in any federal immigrant or religious registry that might be created. It would also give illegal immigrants accused of crimes more protection against federal actions. And so Mark Curran, conservative Catholic Republican, Lake County Sheriff, is supporting the governor's signature on this legislation, and he's probably the best defense that is available on the topic, so we're going to let him make it. Sheriff Mark Curran, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, Deanne and Amy.
So why is the Trust Act a good thing from a law enforcement perspective?
Well, let me say this much. So the Trust Act doesn't exist today, and let's say it exists, presumably the governor signs it on Monday, so it goes into effect next month, let's say.
Okay.
There's no difference. There's no difference to the way law enforcement operates today as it will in a month. We don't do any of those things right now, number one. Number two, I don't know if I'm the best defender. The Illinois Chiefs of Police Association, which represents all of the police departments in Illinois, supported the bill. I don't know any law enforcement, elected law enforcement or other, that holds any position of rank, a chief, what have you, that's not in favor of it. So
every police chief in Illinois is in favor of this?
Tell me who. I don't know. If they're against it, they haven't spoken out.
Well, wait. Why are those who are here illegally? Why are those who are here illegally get extra protection?
They don't get any extra protection. As I said before, what happened, this changes nothing. Ultimately, it's doing business as we're already doing business. So, I understand that, everybody's there's a lot of anger out there, what have you, and it's easily tapped into on immigration issues. But, it's just not. It's not true. I mean, how the act has been represented is not true.
Well,
but beyond that, let me say this. Can I just
okay.
say
Sure.
thing?
Go ahead.
Ultimately, I've gone around the country with Bibles, badges in business, and essentially all faiths. Islamic, Jewish, Catholic, and the overwhelming majority of Protestant are overwhelmingly in favor of an immigration reform bill that would include some type of permanent status for people that have been here a long time. Secondly, business. Anybody that understands economics, Grover Norquist has flown me into his Wednesday group. I mean, I've shared the stage with Steve Case. I've never met anybody that was really smart in terms of economics that didn't think we desperately needed the labor, and that we need an immigration reform bill. Mm-hmm. And from a law enforcement perspective, I want to start addressing the people that are here going forward in terms of illegally. Absolutely. I want border security. I want all those things. I don't like living in a status where there is no rule of law. But we will never have that, and that's where the dishonesty comes in. You'll never get it through Congress unless you do something in terms of the status of people that have been here for a long period of time. So, I mean, that's where the people don't like to hear that, because that's where the honesty is. And but ultimately, both sides will have to compromise in order to fix anything going forward.
Well, so here's the question, though. It's one thing for law enforcement's perspective to be, hey, we want flexibility. So the examples that are given, a person here illegally is witness to a crime or some kind of emergency. You want them to call 911 and not fear that their immigration status is going to be checked. Have flexibility, have discretion. That's not what this legislation does. This legislation isn't may, it shall. And that's a big difference. And it seems to me there's a difference of opinion that you have with ICE and with border agents, because they're saying something very different about sanctuary cities, particularly the acting head of ICE, representing all of his agents, saying something very different about sanctuary cities, as is the Attorney General, in terms of coordination with local and state law enforcement, or the lack thereof in sanctuary cities, than you're saying about your experience as Lake County Sheriff.
No, absolutely. And Lake County is not sanctuary, and we have no interest in being sanctuary. We never have been. And ultimately, we cooperate 100%. We completely cooperate. We allow ICE into our jail. We give them all the records, and then they make the determination as to who they want to deport or not deport, they want to put
Mark, wait a second.
Who they want to put a warrant.
But so you let ICE into your prison, but you're saying if we have the sanctuary state legislation says that will not happen in Illinois under this legislation, so it is different.
It will be.
No, that's not what the bill. That's not what the bill says, and that's not the way the bill operates at all. By the way, the Sheriff's Association was not against the bill either.
I don't care about that. I mean, is ICE still going to be able to go into your prisons?
Yes. ICE will still have 100% access to everything, and they'll still be able to come to our prisons and pick them up. So the difference between us and Cook County is, Cook County, where they have that label of sanctuary, is they won't allow them in.
Right.
So they walk out of potentially they can walk out of the jail, and then ICE has to go look for them in the neighborhoods. We don't do that. As long as they put a warrant on somebody, we hold them.
Yeah, but that's not what's going to happen once the Trust Act becomes a bill, when it's signed by Governor Ronner.
Do
you understand that?
Right.
It becomes a law.
Excuse me.
Do I understand what?
That once this bill becomes the law, ICE is not going to be allowed in your prisons.
Without criminal warrants.
True.
Without criminal
That's
warrants.
Not true. Yeah, absolutely. And we don't honor anything other than a criminal warrant right now. Nobody. I mean, ultimately, there's great civil liability to do that, and there's no reason that we would do that. So they would put a warrant on somebody. Absolutely.
Prevents.
Not willing to put a warrant. If they're not willing to put a warrant on them, then I don't know anybody that holds them on anything other than a warrant anymore.
Prevents federal agents from arresting persons here illegally at schools or state-run hospitals.
Dan, that wouldn't matter to me, but I believe that provision was struck.
Well, this is the reporting
on
it.
Bill.
Okay. But it wouldn't matter to you if it was included? I mean, in your job, I understand it wouldn't matter, but
going into schools and hospitals. I mean, ultimately, I don't think that's.
I don't know if
the world.
Well, wait,
committed a crime.
Well, wait a second. I mean, if somebody committed a crime and they're hiding in a hospital, yes, I want the police to go in and capture that person. A hospital is not like a legal free zone, rule of law free zone.
But that's not. There was not the intention of the drafter, and that was ultimately. I'm almost certain that the provision's not in the bill.
I just want to get back to the thing you said initially, which is under this proposed legislation that is scheduled to become law on Monday, nothing you do as Lake County Sheriff would change. So if nothing you do would change, let's just start from your argument, then why support the legislation? What's the difference?
Well, I think that, there's a couple things going on. One, I don't know that, first of all, community policing, our primary responsibility is keeping the people safe and what have you. This is diametrically opposed to community policing, to have local law enforcement operating in that same capacity. So that's one of the problems. Secondly, is I don't think anybody I don't know any local law enforcement in Illinois, like I said, at a chief level or a sheriff level, that wants to do the federal government's job, that wants to be ICE agents. So ultimately, if they come out and they try to do that, where they try to cross-designate our personnel, we don't want that. It's not going. That would undermine our primary responsibility, which is keeping the neighborhood safe. And in order to do that, we need to have effective community policing.
But I mean, but local police work with DEA. Jointly on interdicting drugs and other federal agents for traffickers of other products or persons, for that matter. And so, I mean, it's not about doing their job; it's about
very different issues, though.
Well, I know they're different issues, but I mean, it's still the idea of coordinating with federal law enforcement, or not.
We do. And we do, and I mean, we've. And we'll coordinate with ICE on matters. We just don't. We don't want the cross designation. I don't think anybody does. And ultimately, here's the problem, Dan. So President Trump has promised all of this immigration, what have you. Congress is not going to give him a budget to do that. The Obama administration maxed out their resources in terms of deportations. They had higher numbers than Bush's presidency, under Bush's presidency. It's just not going to happen. So that's why we need a reform bill. So, they can't do it because they can't get the funding to do it. So let's take all the local people and just make them ICE agents. Well, we don't want to do that because, one, that's not our constitutional responsibility. Secondly, that undermines our primary responsibility, which is to keep the people in the neighborhood safe. We can't. I could write a book on community policing. It will not work if we have all the local people be ICE agents. Thirdly, in Lake County, I can tell you nobody wants it. There's not a single agency that would want their personnel cross-designated.
So you're trying to give some people who are here illegally peace of mind as they go to work, shop, pay taxes, and contribute in their communities? So you want to promote trust between these illegals and police because that helps you get a better product in the end game?
When you say the people that are here illegally, I mean, come to a restaurant in Lake County, I guarantee whoever's serving you, there's a good chance that they're undocumented. I mean, it's just the reality, same thing everywhere else. We need a reform bill, an immigration reform bill, because the vast majority of these people commit no crimes other than their status. And ultimately, from an economic perspective, if we understand nothing else, Grover Norquist, like I said, had me come to his Wednesday audience. There is not anybody in this country that understands economics that doesn't think that we need these people in terms of labor. We can't just deport all the people that are status violators.
No, but we're not. But that's a false choice, Mark, because we're not suggesting that. We're not suggesting that's possible. But we are suggesting that the idea that, as the Trust Act provides, barring police from working with federal immigration authorities, that includes allowing an agent to use law enforcement agency facilities for interviews or investigative purposes, transferring a person into an immigration agent's custody, permitting use of agency's electronic database for investigative interviews, responding to immigrant agents' inquiries regarding a person's incarceration status, release date, or contact info. All of those prohibitions, that doesn't address the underlying problem with border security, illegal immigration, path to citizenship, any of those issues either. It just is a sop to people unlike yourself who don't believe in the rule of law, who believe in special status for particular political constituencies like Tiny Dancer in Chicago and El Gallito and the others that demagogue this issue based on race. But it's not about race. Because it certainly, this would include people, the 40% of people who overstay their visas in terms of these special provisions and protections.
Ultimately, they can put warrants on all these people. I mean, there's nothing that prevents them from doing it, and we'll honor the warrants. We're not sanctuary. We will cooperate on that level. But it's the rest of it. There's nothing being done today that, as a result of the Trust Act bill, we will not be able to do, from that moment henceforward.
All right. He is Mark Curran. It's a very controversial issue, but we appreciate Mark Curran, who's the Lake County Sheriff, joining us and explaining his view on it. Thanks so much, Mark. Appreciate it.
Take care.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.